What's up, everyone? It's Goose. We're going to go over 3 plugins today. I've been searching for a Friedman plugin to use in my DAW, and I'm very used to my Friedman amplifier, as well as the maximum patch on the GT1000, which sounds very close to a Friedman. And so I wanted a solution for my DAW in order to start recording and writing songs. So we're going to go over 3 plugins. The first one is Archetype Plini from Neural DSP, which Amp 2 is said to be a BE-100. STL Tonehubs, which has many Friedman presets on it. And the Line6 Metallurgy Thrash, which has a model of the BE-100 in it. So I'm basically going to compare the features first and foremost, and I'm going to compare the tones as well. Now I want to make a video first because it's Black Friday and I need to buy one before the sales go off. Secondly, you don't really see plugins get compared too often, so I wanted to do it for myself. The first one I'm going to go over is Archetype Plini, and we're only going to be looking at amp number 2, which is supposedly a BE-100. So what Archetype Plini gets you is input levels, a gate. You get a gain, bass, mid, treble, master, presence, which a regular BE-100 that seems to be correct for the gain channel. Also a bright switch, which I believe is probably a mod because I had to mod it in my runt. You also get access to these overdrive and compressor pedals, and then you get the cabinets, but today we'll actually be using a own hammer cabinet to make the comparison a little bit more fair. Moving on, we got STL Tonehub, which is a little bit different from the other two. So what STL Tonehub is, it's actually a collection of all these presets. It's kind of like a curated Kemper, so to speak. You can't make your own presets, but you have a bunch of presets from folks like Josh Middleton and Bill Kelleher and Lee Malia. We're actually going to be using a Friedman HBE, which is sort of a higher gain Friedman, but I got it to sound pretty close. And the reason why we're doing it actually is because it's also using a Mesa Traditional cabinet, which is a little closer to the Mesa oversized IR that I will be using for the comparison. You actually can't load your own IRs in Tonehub, as far as I know. It means that you have to work with the cabinets they're giving you in these presets, and if you can't find the combination that you like, then you're out of luck. There's a stomp box here you like. You can actually apply that to every preset, it seems. And then the amp models are all the same in terms of controls. And so the last plugin we're going to look at is the Line6 Thrash plugin. And their Placater model is their Friedman BE-100, and you can see here it's the only one of the group that has the graphic that looks like the amp, so it's obvious. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but what's nice is that you get all the switches here for all the mods that Dave Friedman has put on his amps over the years. You get the input levels, you get a noise gate, there are some pedals here, including a Earthquaker Devices plumes, which is kind of cool. You get the same sort of cab thing, so I loaded my own IR, but if you have wanted to use a cab, you can move the mics around as you please. So yeah, that's a rough overview of all 3 of the plugins, and I dialed in sort of a tone that's similar between the 3. The IR that I'm going to be using for the Line6 and the Archetype Plini will be the Own Hammer Essentials rectifier oversized with the 57 mic, and I'm doing this just to keep it consistent between the 3. The STL Tone has their own cabinet and 57. These are the closest I could find to the STL, so I hope this is like the closest comparison I could possibly do. The guitar I'm using is the FGN Iliad 7 with the Fishman Fluids Moderns. I will be using Voice 2 as that is what I'm most used to. So because this is a DAW, I also get to just record a once through and just have it flip through the different plugins, and it should actually be more accurate than the usual comparisons I do. So let's get into it. All right, so now for my thoughts. So starting with the STL Tonehub, I think this Tonehub actually has the best noise gate and noise handling in general. If you heard from the clips, when you're slowly chugging on a open chord, it feels way less noisy, and it'll be easier to manage when you're trying to mix down a production. The one thing I will say about the STL Tonehubs that probably is the deal breaker for me is that I cannot load my own IRs. It'll take me a really long time to go through all of these to find a cab that works for me, and even if I do find it, it might not be paired with the amp that I want. So there's just no way for you to mix and match. I think the tones from the amp are also really good, but because they're not modeling the actual dials here, you just kind of get these controls that sort of shape the sound of an amp rather than actually dialing in the amp, if that makes any sense. There are some things you can control a little bit better with, like the gain, for example, or the bias and sag. However, it does feel like the EQ doesn't quite do a lot when you're dialing through it. So even though you see the treble and presence are cranked on this, it didn't feel like it was doing that much. This might be a good option if I'm just searching for something that'll blend really well with an existing preset that I have or an existing plugin that I have. Despite not being customizable, all these presets are actually really good. It was only me trying to match what I would dial in on the other plugins that I couldn't find that for me. If I were to just pick a random preset here, I actually think they sound amazing. So like one of my favorite guitarists, Bill Kelleher from Mastodon, has a bunch of these here, and I'm just going to play through his Butter Slacks, which is sort of like a Friedman. Yeah, I think that sounds really good out of the gate, and I could probably blend that with something that I am used to and get a really good mix out of it. All right, on to the Line 6. I think the first thing I want to mention is the Line 6 is the noisiest of all the plugins. I actually had to engage the gate of the Plini in front of the Line 6 with nothing else enabled. Not only that, I think that when you're playing the slow notes, this is probably, I would say, the worst. Hi there, how you doing? So here it is with the Archetype Plini gate and the Line 6 gate enabled. And here it is without the Plini. You hear that, right? And I could adjust it somewhat here on the plugin, get rid of that noise, which I did here. But if you do that, then your tone gets kind of cut off really quickly. That's no good, right? And so you're left with this plugin that actually just requires another noise gate. I'm not the only one who mentioned this too. If I remember correctly, Ola also mentioned that he ran into some weird noise issues as well. That being said, I think the amp tone itself is really good. Like, it sounds amazing, actually. It sounds really close to what I feel like a Friedman should sound like. It feels like really good to play through, and it feel like it would work really well in the mix as well. I know that Line 6 made a big improvement on their cab selections and also like the IRs for their cabs, but they just still don't sound right to me. They still sound Line 6-ish. I know that this update was added to the HX Stomp, and I was kind of excited for it because I'd never tried the Metallurgy before, and well, it's kind of a disappointment. Don't get me wrong, I think if you work the time to mix a bunch of these mics, I think you could do a very good job of getting a tone out of it, but it takes a lot to do it. So credit to those who can actually do this. All right, and finally, the Archetype Plini. For whatever reason, the Archetype Plini actually does have a little bit of noise in it. It's not as bad as the Line 6, but I cranked the gate all the way to -9. And it's a little bit more manageable than the Line 6. You can definitely get that gate working for you. I actually feel like the low end sounds weird on the Neural DSP. I feel like it feels good to play, but it doesn't quite sound like what a BE's low end would sound like. There's like some frequency missing that I can't really like put my finger on, but they boost other frequencies to make up for it, and it feels good to play under the fingers, which I think Neural DSP has done a very good job of that, but it just doesn't sound right in the mix to me. But everything else about it is amazing. Like the high end sounds really good. The mid range sounds punchy and very forward. And I think out of the gate, this is probably just as easy as a Tonehub to get a good tone out of. So the stock R actually sounds probably the best of the group in my opinion. It's a little bit boxy for me. However, I think it sounds pretty good. But the own hammer is just so much better to me. And this is the own hammer IR with just a 57 as well. For an apples to apples comparison, that's just kind of the difference between these two IRs. So of all three of these, which one am I going to go for? I think I'm probably going to skip out on the STL tones for now, just because I like going in and tweaking and making my own tones. And again, I do stress that I think with all the presets in there, it'd be such a good blending tool to find a good tone for blending if you needed a second guitar or a second like amplifier and cabinet. Line6 is really close, and I want them to be closer. That noise is going to be really hard to tame. However, I think it might be worth it in the long run. And I honestly think that Archetype Plini is just really, really good out of the box. So I probably will get Plini for the BE-100 tones if I needed a quick one to just record something really quick. I don't know if it'll be the last plugin I use for like a mix, because that low end again just kind of bugs me for whatever reason. That's just me being picky. I think it sounds great otherwise. But yeah, that's my opinion on all three of these plugins. I think they all sounded great in their own way, and I don't think that there is one that's better than the other. It really just depends on your use case. If you want a quick tone to go for the Archetype Plini. If you want to dive in and adjust a bunch of things, and despite Line6's I guess history of being memed on, I think that actually the Metallurgy is very, very good. The STL Tonehub is a great library if you just want to find a preset to get going or for mixing with the tone that you already have. I think Tonehub is great for that too. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you liked the video, if you like what you see here, please like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later!